Picture this. It's 1888, and Dean Arthur Stanley is standing in the pitch-black depths of Westminster Abbey, lantern trembling in his hand. The air is thick with centuries of decay, and before him lies something that will haunt him forever. The collapsed, rotting coffin of England's most legendary queen. What he discovered that night wasn't just the remains of Elizabeth of Ferdinand. It was a secret so disturbing that it reveals the shocking truth about what really happens to royalty after death. And trust me, it's nothing like what you'd expect. Today, we're diving into one of history's most macabre mysteries, the horrifying reality of Queen Elizabeth's death and burial. This isn't just another royal history lesson. This is the story of how even the most powerful monarch in English history couldn't escape the gruesome fate that awaited her body. We'll uncover the terrifying embalming process that Elizabeth desperately tried to avoid, the shocking state of her coffin when it was finally opened centuries later, and the disturbing truth about what lies beneath the polished marble of Westminster Abbey. By the end of this video, you'll never look at royal tombs the same way again. Here's what most people don't know about the Virgin Queen. Behind all that power and majesty was a woman absolutely terrified of what would happen to her body after death. And she had good reason to be afraid. In the 16th century, royal embalming wasn't the respectful process you might imagine. It was brutal, invasive, and absolutely horrifying. Picture this. The moment a monarch died, their body was immediately taken to a cold stone slab. Surgeons would slice open the chest with long, sharp blades, then literally reach inside and pull out every organ by hand. The heart, liver, lungs, stomach, intestines. But here's the truly disturbing part. This wasn't done out of respect. It was done to prevent something even worse. The risk of the corpse exploding during the funeral. Elizabeth knew exactly what awaited her, and in her final hours, she made a desperate plea to her physicians. "Do not open me. Do not cut me. Let me meet God as I lived, whole and unbroken." But death doesn't negotiate. On March the 24th, 1603, Queen Elizabeth I died, and with her death, all her royal commands became meaningless. What happened next would have horrified her. The court physicians, bound by duty and terrified of a public disaster, did exactly what she had begged them not to do. They carried her body to the embalming chamber, opened her chest and removed her organs, the very heart that had carried the hopes of an entire kingdom. But here's where it gets truly disturbing. They weren't trying to honor her. They were trying to prevent a catastrophe. Without this brutal procedure, the gases building up inside her decomposing body could have turned her coffin into a ticking time bomb. And this wasn't just theoretical. Other royal funerals had witnessed exactly this horror. Coffins bursting open, exposing rotting remains, turning what should have been a dignified farewell into a nightmare that would haunt witnesses forever. Once the embalming was complete, Elizabeth's body was wrapped in crimson velvet and sealed inside a heavy lead-lined coffin. The lid wasn't for majesty, it was for containment. But even then, something was wrong. During her funeral procession down the Thames, witnesses reported a sickly sweet odor drifting from the coffin. The gases of decay were already seeping through cracks no eye could see. Now we come to the moment that changes everything. The night Dean Arthur Stanley opened Elizabeth's tomb. It was the late 1800s, and Victorian curiosity about the past had reached fever pitch. Stanley had been granted unprecedented permission to explore the sealed royal tombs beneath Westminster Abbey. Armed with nothing but a lantern, he descended into the cold, dark underworld where England's monarchs lay. What he found wasn't the peaceful rest of a beloved queen. It was a scene of absolute decay. The once magnificent coffin had completely collapsed. The wooden layers had turned to powder. The rich velvet was discolored and rotting. Even the lead casing, designed to last forever, had warped and bulged under the relentless pressure of internal decay. But here's the most shocking part. Elizabeth wasn't alone. Above her collapsed coffin lay the remains of her half-sister, Mary, Bloody Mary herself. The two queens who had torn England apart with their rivalry were now locked together in the same narrow vault. Enemies in life, neighbors in eternity. The air around them was thick with centuries of trapped rot. Stanley stood there, surrounded by the reality that even the greatest monarchs cannot escape time's patient hunger. What Stanley witnessed that night reveals a truth that the royal establishment would prefer to keep buried. The beautiful tombs and polished marble of Westminster Abbey are just a facade. Beneath those elegant surfaces lies a different story entirely, one of decay, collapse, and the ultimate equality of death. Elizabeth's body, embalmed with such desperate urgency, had not found peace. The internal gases had continued their terrible work for centuries. The coffin had bulged, the velvet had stained, and the wood had simply vanished. Yet somehow fragments of her identity endured. The Tudor rose embroidery, though faded, was still visible. The initials ER, Elizabeth Regina, still marked the warped lead, a ghostly whisper of the woman who had once been Gloriana. So, there you have it, the shocking truth about Queen Elizabeth I's final resting place. The woman who commanded armies, outwitted kings, and defied the Spanish Armada couldn't escape the one enemy that defeats us all: time itself. Her tomb isn't just a monument to a great queen. It's a message carved not in stone, but in the slow, patient work of decay. A reminder that velvet fades, lead bends, and flesh, no matter how royal, must surrender to nature's final claim. The next time you visit Westminster Abbey and admire those beautiful royal tombs, remember what lies beneath. The polished marble hides a very different story, one of collapsed coffins, rotting velvet, and the ultimate democracy of death. What do you think is more disturbing? The brutal embalming process Elizabeth tried to avoid, or the state of her coffin when it was finally opened? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to uncover more shocking secrets hidden beneath the surface of history, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell. Next week, we're exploring another royal mystery that will completely change how you think about the past. Because sometimes the most powerful stories aren't found in history books. They're buried 6 feet underground, waiting for someone brave enough to uncover the truth.